Rock Metal Nation, what is up? Real quick before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that Rock Metal Studios, the very same studio that brings you the Rock Metal podcast, is looking to help bands who are able to record their tracks either at home or in a professional recording studio, but need some help mixing. Go ahead and send me an email at therockmetalpodcast@gmail.com. That's therockmetalpodcast@gmail.com. We can go ahead and discuss mixing your tracks for free. The Rock Metal Podcast, episode 128 with Red Cain. Boom. Rock Metal Nation, what is up? This is John from the Rock Metal Podcast. That's everything you just heard was Snakebouquet by Red Cain, who I've got on the show with me right now. They've got a new album called Kindred set to release later this year, and right now I'm being joined by vocalist Yevgeny Zareny to share some stories about the music and share more info about the band. Yevgeny?
Fantastic. Thanks, John. Really glad to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on. Let's go and listen back to that track. coming back from Snakebouquet. Now, big question. Since it's all one word, am I allowed to pause in between snake and bouquet?
You know what? As long as you say the whole word within 10 seconds of one another, you can pause in the middle. That's fine.
All right. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, excellent track, very dramatic track. I don't know if that's what you guys were going for or not, but as I was listening to the intro, I was like, okay, this is a serious band that wants us to know that this is an epic track, and it doesn't ever let down from that promise.
Yeah, well, it's our first single from the upcoming album, so we had to come out with something fairly big. And one of my passions is space, and the fact that Russia, the country where I'm from, and Canada, North America, the country where I am now, are both leaders in kind of like the space industry. So we opened the track with the actual transmission from Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, and his first transmission from space. And we kind of wanted to do this whole thing where the space race and the reach of humanity toward the stars is kind of juxtaposed a little bit with some mythology. This is where we pulled the Snakebouquet concept from, because there's a Sumerian myth which equates the Earth to a snake goddess that must be essentially placated. And they talked about sacrifices and a whole bunch of these really, really interesting, cool things. So we decided to basically bring in that concept and give it a little bit of mystique, and then talk about space and make it a little bit more abstract, but of course very, very epic, and have it as like a hymn, almost like an ode to the men and women that go to space and to reach that frontier, and who essentially strive against great odds to push humanity a level further.
Very cool stuff. Now, for Rock Metal Nation who dug the track Snakebouquet, as a bonus, if you go to today's show notes, www.therockmetalpodcast.ca, you can go ahead and see the music video for Snakebouquet, which is also an epic masterpiece in and of itself. So, Yevgeny, go ahead and take us through the masterminding of the music video.
Right. So the music video actually was pretty interesting because we filmed it at Slaughterhouse Studios in Calgary. This is a very, very old musical establishment, and the guys that run it are fantastic guys. And a lot of the bands that we know, a lot of our friends tend to practice in there. So it's a rehearsal space, essentially. And it used to be an actual slaughterhouse. So it's got a pretty interesting layout. It's got like the racks on the ceiling where the animals were brought in, and the carcasses hung and everything else. It's pretty damn metal. And so we knew from the very beginning that no, it's true. It's the most metal place I've ever been.
You and I are now best friends. That's all I got to say.
Excellent.
I don't know anybody else in this universe who says it's the most metal thing ever. Usually when I say that, even other metalheads are like, what are you talking about?
Well, you know what? We loved it, this place. So basically, we wanted to make use of it somehow. And we knew that this first video was going to be a performance video, as opposed to something that's story driven, let's say. And so we actually met a really good local filmmaker named Zach Kelly, who we really hit it off with really quickly. And he was very interested in doing this video for us. And so what we ended up doing is we had a bit of a storyboard, but essentially we wanted to fog up the place with a fog machine, and then set ourselves up as if we're performing in front of like a lone observer, almost like a bit ritualistic, you can say. Almost like it's a ritual, but it's a live ritual. And so we did that, and we spent a day in there tracking the video. There wasn't really much in terms of choreography. We just ran through it a lot of times. We tried to do it almost the exact same way that we do it live. And for us, it was a very interesting experience because you don't really see yourself externally all that much when you play live. I mean, you see the videos and et cetera, but that is more of a back and forth interaction with the audience, and you play off of what's happening elsewhere. This is like a completely self-contained environment. So for us to do this, and it's almost like an idealized version of what we would look like live. Plus, it's the first music video. It's in this really cool place that we liked. There's a lot of fog. There's a lot of like lights and all this kind of cool stuff. And so we just let it go pretty organically. And frankly, there wasn't even much editing that had to be done. We just kind of did a few takes and then ran through a few interesting portions of it. And there is a bit of a storyline element, of course. Like if when you watch the video, there's just a few shots of me wearing a mask. And that's actually a super cool mask that I completely on accident ended up buying online from this one really interesting artist, and we wanted to have that mythological element in the song being symbolized somewhat by this figure in a mask and wearing almost like a cult robe, and just kind of lead the viewer and the listener in that direction.
The mystery is gone. I now know the masked man was you.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Right. Let's go listen to the next track, Hiraeth.
Cases years, fire burns his eyes.
Rock Metal Nation, it's John from the Rock Metal Podcast for a real quick break to let you know that Jay over at Metal Mayhem Radio is looking to help you get your band in rotation on his station. So go ahead and hit up Jay at studio@metalmayhemradio.co.uk. That is studio@metalmayhemradio.co.uk. Just go ahead and say that the Rock Metal Podcast sent you. He'll get you into rotation on Metal Mayhem Radio. Coming back from Hiraeth, now another banging track, sir. I love the, obviously, I don't know if you play the guitars in there at all or not or have any say, but the riff that's in there is really cool. And that's really all I can say about it, is the riff is really cool.
Which one, though? There's a few different ones.
I want to guess the one in the verse. It's like, it almost sounds like, I imagine what two-hand tapping would sound like.
Yeah, interesting. So that track is kind of an interesting track because it was one of the earliest tracks we wrote as a band. And one of the guys that helped us write that track is a really good friend of mine, Andre Buldan. He's got his own project. He's Romanian, actually. Really, really good guitarist. And he... Why do you say uh-oh?
You still had everything? You still had all your possessions when you were done, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, you know what? I'm very, very cautious around it. So. So the song really came about when he brought in, I think it was even that riff. And then he just kind of came to us and we were all sitting and jamming and everything else. And he played the riff and I was like, bam, I'm taking that and we're going to use it in the song. So we threw the riff in there and we built the rest of the song around it. And the funny part is that it sounded so Eastern European to me from the very beginning. Like that entire, I'm not sure what it is about the composition, but the compilation of the riffs and just like the way it came across was extremely nostalgic even. So I was like, well, shit, we have to write a song that reflects that. And that's what we did. We essentially made it like a hymn to glories past in Eastern Europe.
Slavny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a very Slavna pesnya.
Yes. So for Rock Metal Nation who dug the track Hiraeth, if you go to today's show notes, www.therockmetalpodcast.ca, there is a lyric video that you can see. Now, go ahead and tell us about this new album coming out later this year called Kindred. What should we expect?
Basically, well, to an extent, more of the same. However, as a band, when we released the EP, we were less than a year old. And so naturally, there's quite a bit of growth. One thing that we are really proud of doing in this album is just the complexity of the tracks and the complexity of the layering on the tracks. We're still doing it fairly organically, but there's a lot that we want to say using a variety of different instruments. So look for a lot of the tracks to have a ton of layers, but we're never going to forsake the heavy guitars and the vocals that have the primacy in the tracks. So it's not going to be like poppy, but it's going to be really heavy, but there's some really interesting, intricate stuff under the hood, so to speak. In terms of song structures, we've got, we're doing ballads now, apparently. So we've got a couple of ballads on there, which are not your regular type of ballads, but I guess you can classify them as a ballad. We're going to have a huge, epic, long track based on one of my favorite fantasy series, Wheel of Time. So that's going to be probably the closing track of the album. I'm not going to say the name of it or anything else, but it's going to be epic. And then aside from that, we're really looking, compared to the EP, to do more aggressive, heavy, almost djenty songs with a lot of like low end, a lot of very heavy drum work. And there's going to be quite a few of those, maybe 3 or 4. I'm also experimenting somewhat with vocals, so you'll hear some interesting vocal things on that album. We're not really limiting ourselves to a genre because we honestly haven't really determined what genre we're going to be or whether we're ever going to choose a genre. We're labeled as prog metal, which is probably, if you want to use an umbrella term, that would likely be what we are. But considering our members and the amount of influences we have, like it's pretty impossible to write something that's veers directly in one place. Like for example, our bassist Rogan is super into like weird Japanese jazz bands right now, so that is really showing in some of the songwriting for the album. So it'll be pretty eclectic. You can still rely on the fact there will be epic choruses like in Snakebouquet, There's still going to be some pretty cool, intricate guitar solos, and yeah, a lot of, well, more of the same, but a lot of different stuff as well.
Wow, very cool. Now, for the next logical question on Rock Metal Nation's mind, who's currently frothing at the ears at what they've heard and what you've just said, how can they find out more about you and stay in touch? Is there a website that they should go to?
So we're mainly on Bandcamp with the releases. So it'll be redcain.bandcamp.com. That's where we throw all the new things that we release, and that's where we're going to release the next few singles, which are coming very soon, by the way. We're scheduling 4 of them in total before the album drops. So that's 3 more that are coming out. Aside from that, most of the stuff that we communicate to our fans and everybody else is on Facebook. So you can find us on Facebook. Just search for Red Cain, or facebook.com/RedCainOfficial. Also, generally, we try to be pretty active in Instagram. So check there as well. And aside from that, yeah, those are the main avenues.
All right. Well, Yevgeny, unless there's anything else you wanted to throw out there, I just wanted to thank you for taking time out of your day to come onto the Rock Metal Podcast and sharing Red Cain with Rock Metal Nation.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, John. It's been a pleasure to be here.
All right, Rock Metal Nation. Hopefully you just found your new favorite band in Red Cain. Big thanks again to them for coming on and sharing their music with us. Make sure to head over to www.therockmetalpodcast.ca to get all the information on the show you just heard today. And until then, rock on, Rock Metal Nation.